The tools that we use the most in the Avid interface are the motion effects. Oftentimes video is recorded in a time-lapse mode. You have multiple days on one video cassette. You play it back in a standard VCR and it's playing back very fast. With the Avid, we can slow that video down and we can see details that we might have missed otherwise. As far as tools with Detective, we use the duplex tool every single day. Every single day we use that tool because so many videotapes are multiplexed and we need to see what happened on a particular camera. It's a very common tool for us to use. Now that our prosecutors and our detectives know that we have these tools, they bring videos to us that they wouldn't have brought to us otherwise. A videotape that they might have dismissed before as impossible, there's nothing to use on it, they will at least give me a call and say, is there anything you can do? And I think in some cases we've been able to get video they never thought they could get. We didn't do anything magical. We just use the tools we have and we're able to help them in a way they didn't know could be done.
I just started out at doing video production and they brought me a bunch of strange tapes and said, what can you do with this? And so I just kind of naturally evolved into the forensics end of it. Before we had the Avid, we did the processing the wrong way. We used pause a lot to try and snap a picture off the screen, slow-mo to try and slow things down to the proper speed. So we probably caused a lot of damage to the tapes, more than we would have liked to. And now that we have the Avid system, we can digitize it once and do everything else in the computer.
Before we started with the software, the Avid system, we were basically hitting the pause button on the VCR and creating a dye sublimation print from the printer of the still image, and that was the basis of our video expertise at the time. So with the new equipment, I mean, we're going the full gamut. We're able to separate cameras where we've got multiplex systems, very complicated. We're able to slow things down so that the jury or judge can now really see what's going on. Not only that, of course, then we're able to select individual fields of video and use the still images in a comparative analysis. I'm sure that cases before that could easily have been solved if we had the equipment we do now.
One of the first cases that was significant in our office was a 10-year-old homicide where the suspect, who was incarcerated for an unrelated offense, was accused of killing his fiancée. The body had never been found, the old habeas corpus. The detectives brought us this 10-year-old videotape. We deplexed it. And what it was a jewelry store in one of the larger malls in southeastern Michigan. It shows the clerk vacuuming the floor and preparing the store for opening right around 9 o'clock. The defendant is seen walking into the jewelry store and was attempting and successfully returned the diamond engagement ring that he was going to give his fiancée. We got a conviction without having the corpse. 10 years ago, the technology was not there to present that one camera angle from a multiplexed videotape to a jury. Just knowing that a murder conviction was obtained using that videotape evidence, oh, I was ready to ring the bells.
My partner and I work in the larceny unit with Oklahoma City Police Department, and he had a case where a bad guy came into one pawn shop and stole some jewelry and then immediately went to another pawn shop within 30 minutes and pawned it. And I was hoping that, you know, nobody'd know the difference, but he brought the two videotapes to me from each pawn shop and asked me to do some comparison and see if I could prove that from one pawn shop it was the same bad guy that went to the other one. And I was able to match up a whole lot of identifiers covering areas from his ball cap down to his shoes. Actually, my first day of turning on the system, I had this done. It's just as important to have a video as evidence as it is fingerprint, blood spatters, footprints, DNA. Video is just as important.
The first forensic video analysis case I did was a murder that had occurred in a back alley, and 10 minutes after the murder, the suspect and his friend walked into a 7-Eleven store, and that video simply showed them making the purchase. But when you were able to do a forensic video analysis of the surveillance video, we were able to look beyond the front window of the store into the darkness, and by tracking pixels, we were able to determine who the driver of the car was that pulled in front of the store. That was very significant because the victim's DNA was found on the left side of the driver's seat. So knowing who the driver was would go a long way to determining who deposited the victim's DNA on the left side of the driver's seat. And it's routine for the police to now seize video from places within a mile of where a crime occurred in the hopes that we'll catch them in the convenience store beforehand or the convenience store afterwards.
It was very exciting to me, first of all, to do what the people that gave me the tape wanted. They wanted a facial shot of a gentleman. The tape I'd received shows a suspect. He walks by the camera. You only see his shoulder. And the prosecutors wanted a facial shot, and we were able to show the underscan area and to reveal the gentleman's face. But I'm also even more excited perhaps at the comparative analysis that I was able to do with marks on his hat and on his jacket in addition to showing his face.
There was a bank robber who went into the bank and he put a note up on the door facing the customers. He went in, robbed the bank, I believe, of $15,000, left the bank, but before he took the note and left. It was a multiplexed system. I slowed it down and I deplexed it and I enhanced the note so much so that you could read it. Well, that made the detectives very excited because when they went to search the suspect's place, they found a note all crumpled up and they brought it to me. And, but because I had done the clarification on the original video and I was seeing the note, they didn't say the same thing. I could tell immediately it was authored by the same person. He had the exact same spelling mistakes. He apologized, sorry for the inconvenience, and he used inconvenience twice. And that was spelt wrong. Until was spelt wrong. It was closed until 10:30. They had slightly different wording. Now, although I'm not a handwriting expert, I pointed out, I believe, 26 similarities between the practice note and the note that I was able to frame average using the detective tools. In the end, he was convicted of 6 years for that robbery.
A recent case was a homicide involving a fast food restaurant. It was a pretty brutal homicide. The original tape that we got was a multiplex CCTV videotape. We were able to isolate the one particular camera that gave us some good images of the suspects. We then exported it to a VHS tape, which the police department was able to give to the news agencies, and they broadcast that, and they made an arrest within 8 hours. Another case, smash and grab at a gas station. Without the Avid system, we wouldn't have recognized that there were two principals. We were able to see that there was another suspect, and he had just about a full face on camera. It's almost like he posed for the picture. Probably out of 200 to 400 different videotapes, I've only had to testify on one occasion. The other times they put me on standby, and by the end of the day, the detective in charge of the case would call and advise that the defendant either was pled out or was found guilty.
We go through 60 to 90 tapes a month, give or take. Some of them go to trial, some of them don't. They decide it's better to plead guilty to whatever charge that the district attorney provides rather than going through the whole process of a trial, because they realize that they are going to be found guilty and they would rather get it over with quickly. And that saves us money from not having to have detectives and myself or my partner in court, not having to pay overtime. We can get people back out on the streets, back solving other cases quicker, protecting the people that we're there to protect, which is really what our job is.